Roger Hanberg. As a United States Attorney for the Middle District of Florida, I have the privilege of serving as a Chief Federal Law Enforcement Officer for 35 counties in this state. Since taking office almost 3 years ago, I've prioritized working with our law enforcement partners to aggressively investigate and federally prosecute traffickers of illegal drugs and perpetrators of violent crime, money laundering, and fraud. Today, I'm proud to tell you about a multi-agency, multi-year investigation that successfully dismantled a violent organization that was responsible for trafficking fentanyl and over 150 kilograms of cocaine into Central Florida, and that received over $6.5 million in ill-gotten gains during the course of the conspiracy. Here today with me are representatives of my law enforcement partners. I'm going to introduce them from your left to right. So on the far left, we have Eddie Hobb, who is a team leader with the United States Postal Inspection Service. Next to him, we have Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives Special Agent in Charge, Kirk Howard. We've got Major Fred Hinderman with the Osceola County Sheriff's Office. We have DEA Assistant Special Agent in Charge, Judith Sullivan. We have Special Agent in Charge, Ron Locker, with Internal Revenue Service Criminal Investigations. We have Micah McCombs, who's the Assistant Special Agent in Charge of Homeland Security Investigations. We have Lieutenant Omar Barrio with the Kissimmee Police Department. We have Deputy Chief Wilson Munoz with the Kissimmee Police Department. And we have AJ Colazzo, who is the head of our HIDA, High Intensity Drug Trafficking, that covers Central Florida. As a result of the hard work and dedication of these agencies, a federal grand jury sitting in Tampa has indicted 12 individuals from Florida, Puerto Rico, and South Carolina for crimes ranging from murder, drug trafficking, firearms offenses, to money laundering and COVID fraud. These indictments are the results of many years of excellent work. Beginning in 2020, undercover operatives began infiltrating this organization by purchasing fentanyl and cocaine from its members. Over the course of about a year, investigators purchased fentanyl and cocaine on at least 13 different occasions. The investigation expanded from there, ultimately exposing its suppliers, members, and revealing the locations the organization used to carry out its activities. The leader of this organization is Carlos Limry Donez. He was the supplier. He held himself out as being a legitimate businessman, holding various titles, including owner, manager, or vice president of La Teresa Sports Bar and Restaurant located in Kissimmee. But he was anything but that. All of those titles were nothing more than a front for what he really was, which was a significant drug trafficker. Limry supplied cocaine and fentanyl to Santos Obadulio Cruz Rivera, Nelson Franco, Rebel Rivera Carbonell, Roberto Rodriguez Almadar, Madeline Sanchez, Luis Torres Sanchez, and Johnson Rivera Martinez. Those 7 individuals are charged in a drug trafficking conspiracy with Limry. They did the work of selling Limry's cocaine and fentanyl in Central Florida, giving him the lion's share of the proceeds. Limry used those proceeds that he received from those drug dealers to finance a lavish lifestyle, including a renovated house, an almost $100,000 Mercedes, extensive foreign travel, expensive jewelry, and even cosmetic surgery for himself. Drug trafficking and violence go hand in hand. Drug traffickers often use violence and firearms to protect themselves and their drugs, and that was the case here. This organization was a violent one. It protected its territory and reputation through violence, and it was, in turn, a target for violence itself. Violence that resulted in the death of one of its members and that led to retaliation and a murder. The federal indictments in this case charge a murder that was done by a member of Limry's organization in retaliation for the killing of one of its members. On June 30th of 2021, At a stash house used by the organization in Kissimmee, one of the organization's lookouts was shot and killed after an argument ensued between rival drug dealers. Limrey's organization sought retribution. On the morning of August 3, 2021, Roberto Rodriguez Almodovar killed one of the people who was present at the June 30th homicide. He shot the victim with a single gunshot in the back of the head while the victim was walking down the street. In addition to violence, Limrey's organization trafficked in drugs, lots of them. Over the course of this investigation, investigators have seized over 150 kilograms of cocaine and over 600 grams of fentanyl and fentanyl analogs. The motivation to sell lethal fentanyl and cocaine in our communities, well, it's nothing but greed. During this investigation, the agencies have identified over $6.5 million in proceeds that were legally obtained as a result of the conspiracy and the other federal crimes that have been charged. Some of those funds were used for personal spending. Others were used to purchase a residence in Polk County and to make mortgage payments on a residence in Osceola County. Regardless of how those funds were used, we are seeking the forfeiture of every single cent in the recovery of those funds that were made and acquired as a result of the charges in this case. Some of the defendants in this case did not limit their crimes to drug trafficking, violence, or money laundering. Several of them engaged in fraud. Lara Quente, who is the girlfriend of one of the drug dealers, obtained a loan for the purchase of a residence in Osceola County that was based on false statements about her earnings and income. Lara Quente's conspirator in this effort was Will Marie Sepulveda, who was the owner of Famous Nails by Yee Yee, LLC. Lara Quente claimed that she worked for Sepulveda at the nail salon, and Sepulveda submitted a verification form to the lending institution in support of that claim. But those representations were false, and both of them have been indicted for their role in that conspiracy. They were not alone in committing fraud. Two of the drug dealers, Cruz and Torres, provided false income and employment information on a credit application to finance a motorcycle. For his part, Limrey provided false income information on a credit application to finance that Mercedes I talked about, and Cruz provided false information about his income and employment on a credit application to finance 2 trucks. Members of the drug trafficking organization also engaged in what we call COVID fraud. In response to the COVID-19 pandemic, the Small Business Administration Paycheck Protection Program was created. These are often called PPP loans. PPP loans were designed in part to provide a direct incentive for small businesses to keep their workers on the payroll. Under this program, the Small Business Administration could forgive all or part of a borrowing business's loan if the employees were kept on the payroll for 8 weeks and borrowers submitted documentation confirming that the loan proceeds were used for certain qualifying business expenses. On February 14, 2021, Limrey submitted a PPP loan application on behalf of a business called Carlos Spot. Limrey claimed that he was the owner of the business, and they had 1 employee and an average monthly payroll of $5,800. And in support of that loan, Limrey submitted an IRS Form Schedule C that claimed the business had a gross income of $69,600 in 2019. None of that was true. There was no business registered with the Florida Division of Corporations called Carlos Spot, and the Schedule C was created for the sole purpose of obtaining a PPP loan. And that's what happened. Limrey received a loan of $14,500, which he used for his own personal benefit. For his part, Cruz submitted a similar false application for a Paycheck Protection Program loan. His fake business was called Santo Haircut, and he provided a false IRS Form 1040 Schedule C in support of that application. He also was successful, receiving a loan of $16,250, which he used for his own personal benefit. Limrey's drug trafficking organization operated for over 5 years. It was involved in trafficking large amounts of fentanyl and cocaine in this community. Its members engaged in acts of violence and murder. They possessed and used firearms, and they laundered drug proceeds and engaged in fraud. But not any longer. This has been a comprehensive investigation. The investigators have left no stone unturned. The result of their efforts is that 12 defendants have been indicted in 4 separate indictments totaling 29 different counts. The indictments in this case are detailed, consisting of more than 50 pages. Not every defendant is charged in every indictment or every count. Each defendant is charged with federal violations related to their role in the organization and their crimes. Those charges include a count for the drug trafficking conspiracy involving large amounts of fentanyl and cocaine, a count for the murder, counts for some of the undercover drug purchases and other drug violations, counts for money laundering charges, counts for use or possession of firearms, counts for fraud related to real estate transactions, and counts for COVID fraud. The goal of these comprehensive charges is to dismantle Limrey's organization once and for all, so that it no longer exists. The law enforcement agencies who worked on this case are to be commended. Their efforts on this case have undoubtedly saved lives. According to the most annual report by the Florida Medical Examiners on drug deaths, fentanyl and cocaine ranked first and second in the state of Florida for drug-related overdoses. The seizures that I've described here today and the arrest of the people responsible for them have protected everyone in this community and this state from those dangerous drugs. An investigation of this breadth and scope is not easy, nor is it quick. This is what we call an Organized Crime Drug Task Force investigation, or an OCDF case. In an OCDF case, investigators and federal prosecutors work together to identify, disrupt, and dismantle the highest level criminal organizations that threaten the United States by using a prosecutor-led, intelligence-driven, multi-agency approach. These cases require meticulous work by excellent investigators to put together the evidence that will support prosecutions to combat organized crime and reduce the availability of illicit narcotics in the United States. The investigative cases that work on these cases must be of the highest caliber, and they must have the resources, expertise, and commitment to conduct the type of long-term enterprise investigations that are needed to disrupt drug trafficking organizations and dismantle them. That is what we have with the agencies who you see before you today. I want to commend them for working together as a team to develop the evidence that has led to the 4 federal indictments in this case. Through their excellent work and partnership, 8 defendants have been charged with trafficking fentanyl and cocaine. Of those 8 defendants, 1 is also charged with murder and furtherance of drug trafficking, and 2 are charged with firearms offenses. Several are also charged with other drug offenses, money laundering, and fraud. They purchase homes through deceit and fraud, making them unavailable to hardworking Americans who live honest lives. The defendants charged in this case include members at every level of the alleged conspiracy, including the source of supply and the people who help conceal the traffickers' ill-gotten gains. The allegations contained in the indictments charging the defendants with these crimes and the allegations I've summarized here today that are set out in court documents, well, they're just that. They're allegations. And each of the 12 defendants in these cases is presumed innocent unless and until proven guilty. These federal charges are serious. One of the defendants faces a maximum of up to life in federal prison or death. 6 of the charged defendants face up to life in federal prison, and another defendant faces up to 40 years in federal prison, and the other remaining defendants face up to 20 years in federal prison. This case is a great example of how local and federal investigators are able to effectively work together to protect our community by dismantling a drug trafficking organization at its source. I want to thank the agencies on this case for their outstanding work on it. And with that, I will open it up to any questions anyone has.
Sir, can you shed some light on how this started? Was it a tip, a special operation? How did y'all get involved and start this whole thing?
So I would say one of the things that helped lead to this case was back in 2019, there was a significant seizure of cocaine in Central Florida that resulted in a federal prosecution. And that was in part, what led to this investigation.
And do we know where these drugs were coming from and how they were being moved around the state?
So if you, in the indictment, there's a number of different methods, I think, that are discussed. One of them in particular was, one of the reasons we have the postal inspectors with us is some of it looks like it was coming through the United States mail, but there are other sources as well. A lot of times these drug organizations have varied ways that they end up transporting drugs.
Speaking of the mail, like we're talking out of country here?
I think in the indictment, I think it says the packages, I don't know if it has the, where they came from. Yeah, it has where they were received in this district.
Obviously, this kind of centered in Kissimmee. When we talk about, the amount of drugs, money involved in an organization like this, how far does that stretch out? Are we talking about impacts, here in Tampa and beyond?
So this was an organization that operated in Osceola and Polk counties as well, and obviously it has distribution networks that go beyond those areas. And so one of the things that we always do in these investigations, and one of the things I admire about these law enforcement agencies is they're going to follow up on each and every lead. And sometimes an indictment is the end of an investigation, and sometimes it's a continuation of the investigation. And the community has our commitment that we're going to follow up on those leads and make sure we track them down to every place that we can, including to see if there's any ties to this community. But primarily in Osceola and Polk County are the two counties that we've seen this organization primarily in. All right. Well, with that, thank you very much. I appreciate you being here.